That's for approval this evening. So we will move on to council courtesies, but I'd like to begin our council courtesies with something that is not a positive report by any means, but one that is very, very important. Over the weekend, we had several incidents, both locally and internationally, that were dark and distressing. In particular, we had the mass shooting on Bondi Beach in Australia in Sydney that left, I believe at last count, at least 16 dead in a vicious example of anti-Semitism that the whole world mourns. Closer to home, we saw 6 swastikas and slurs painted on the walls of Mayflower Congregational Church. And we condemn, I certainly do as your mayor, but I'm sure this council does as well, all cases of hate that involve violence, property damage, and they go far, far, far beyond free exercises of free speech. There is no place in our city for these kinds of crimes, and that's what they are, is crimes. And for hate, hate is inherently corrosive. It damages not just the immediate victims of these events, but divides our community and destroys trust. Fortunately, our Billings Police Department is actively investigating the events at the Mayflower Congregational Church. Details of their efforts are posted on the Billings Police Department Facebook page. I spoke over the weekend when that was first reported with the chief of police, and he assured me that they were mounting a vigorous investigation to find the perpetrators. If anybody in the community has information about those events, I strongly encourage you to contact the Billings Police Department and stay tuned for future developments as well. I thank the community for standing up and denouncing the events at Mayflower Congregational Church, and I encourage all of us to draw closer together and not let these events divide our community as we stand against these examples of hate and any that might happen in the future. As it was said now many years ago, not in our town. With that, we'll ask whether other members of the council have other council courtesies that they would like to raise at this time. Any other, Council Member Kennedy?
On a more uplifting note, Saturday we had Wreaths Across America at the Yellowstone National Cemetery. We had over 1,600 wreaths to lay out at the cemetery. I would ask any of you to please go out north of Laurel to see the National Cemetery and the wreaths that are there. We had over 150 to 200 people that came out in the cold and the snow, brushed the snow aside, and laid the wreaths at each of the graves. We had from Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church groups, to older veterans that all came out. It was nice to see, and the respect that they have for the veterans that are laid to rest there. And I'd just like to thank all the groups that raised the money for the wreaths, and all of the people that came out in cold weather to place them on the graves. So thank you.
Thank you to those volunteers. Thank you to Councilmember Kennedy, who year after year works hard on that effort. Any other council courtesies? Seeing none, we'll move on to our council proclamation this evening. We do have one in recognition of Homeless Persons Memorial Day, and the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the winter poses extreme hardship for unsheltered and inadequately housed low-income men, women, and children in Yellowstone County, and whereas the spirit of the holiday season of giving provides an opportunity for affirmation and renewal regarding our commitment to end homelessness. And whereas December 21st, the day with the longest night of the year, has been designated National Homeless Persons Memorial Day by the National Coalition for the Health National Coalition for the Health Care for the Homeless Council, and is so recognized nationwide. And whereas Riverstone Health helps homeless persons gain access to health care through their services and organizes the Billings Homeless Memorial each year to honor and remember those who have died homeless in Yellowstone County and to prevent future homeless deaths by raising awareness about fundamental solutions to homelessness. And now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of the City of Billings, do hereby proclaim December 21st, 2025 as Homeless Persons Memorial Day in Billings and ask all citizens to take a moment of silence in remembering those who've died homeless and encourage our citizens to support all local efforts to eliminate homelessness in our communities. I don't think we have anybody with us from Riverstone Health, but there will be a recognition of Homeless Persons Memorial Day on the courthouse lawn on, I believe, December 22nd at noon. So if you can attend that, all are welcome, and please do. With that, council reports. Are there any council reports from organizations that you serve on behalf of the council? Seeing none. City administrator reports. Chris.
Yes, Mayor, just a few things. So first, as you're aware, we did make some changes to the agenda for this evening, made those Friday. Unfortunately, determined that legal review had not taken place on those documents, so we removed 3B, C, and D, but felt it was still important to do the policy, get some policy direction relative to the question before us in following our process to connect to utilities. So that change, we'll make sure the public is aware of that. Second, in addition to your conversation with Chief St. John, we did have code enforcement did reach out, had a conversation with Mayflower as well to see if our equipment and materials could help them with the graffiti. Unfortunately, the material that the building is made out of, it makes it pretty challenging, but we wanted to make sure if we had anything that would help get that removed immediately, that we reached out and had that conversation with them today. Third, offices will be closed, of course, on Christmas and New Year's Day. So just FYI there, both December 25th and obviously January 1st. Also, this is our last council meeting for the year. So what has been said is feel free to take, and we'll talk at the end here. We're going to have, I've got some comments and some plaques for you guys, but one of the things you feel free to take with you is your name tag, but keep it in the front seat of your car because the new council, you're still on the council until the new ones are sworn in. So just in case something were to happen between now and the 5th, we will be back in this room. But otherwise, this is our last council meeting. And last, there's no ex parte communication that came in late this afternoon. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Normally, we have public comment on non-agenda items at the very end of our meeting, a regular business meeting. There was some thought tonight that there might be a large number of people who were here to make comments about what happened at Mayflower Congregational Church. I don't see a lot of people in the audience. Councilmember Ripsis, should I take a little poll? Okay. So the thought was we could change our agenda. We'd have to have a vote to allow public comment on non-agenda items at the beginning of our meeting. Also, if people wanted to make their comments and leave. Were there people who came tonight specifically to make comments on that event or others? So there's at least one. Any others? So Councilmember Rupsis, I'll leave that to you to do with as you please.
Oh, it went on and then off. Thank you, Mayor. I just move that we would allow public comment on non-agenda items along with our regular public comment period at the beginning.
Okay, motion made, second by Councilmember Rogers to allow for public comment on non-agenda items at this time. And just a reminder, we will have 2 public hearings later, so hold off on those. But if you'd like to comment, so we'll have a vote on that motion. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Aspliner.
Just want to clarify. So we're going to take public comment first, but we're not going to do another public comment series at the end, right? We're just going to move that to the front. So if you want to get your public comment in, get it in now. Is that the direction?
I was gonna, my interpretation was we would allow both. My concern would be, and I'll ask the city administrators or city attorney, is there any problem with taking it off the end? You know, if people show up late, for example, to make comment toward the end, that would be my concern. So Councilmember Whips, just clarifying your motion.
I'm sorry, that's why I worded it that way, just in case somebody did show up, you know, towards the end of the meeting when they would be expected to be able to give public comment.
So it would be the motion is to allow it now, but not to eliminate it later.
We're adding we're adding a public comment period. Okay, thank you.
Yes, so that's the motion. Okay, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Okay, motion passes. Councilmember Aspenleiter in the negative. With that clarification, we'll now move to public comment on non-public hearing items, which would be item 1, our consent agenda. Also item 4, the city administrator review, and also non-agenda items. So if it's something that wasn't on the agenda, the only thing I will caution you, we won't let you have 2 bites at the apple on the same topic. So go ahead, come forward. And we just asked that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Tell us your name, address, if you're comfortable doing so. And
Can you hear me?
we can.
Okay.
And we do, just a reminder, keep your mouth close to the microphone so everybody can hear, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Tucker Colvin. I live in the North Park neighborhood of Billings, and I'm here on behalf of Billings Stronger Together, a local group that does all sorts of things. But I'm here to address the incident at Mayflower Congressional Church. I appreciate the work that the city and the police is doing, so thank you for the statement and that great effort. I'm just going to provide a little bit more context of a bigger overview of what's going on some of the hate and discrimination happening in Billings. This recent incident is in addition to some other incidents that have happened in the last few weeks. The Wayman Chapel AME Church was vandalized with some stained glass windows broken. The Grace United Methodist Church had some flags and vandalism as well in the last few weeks. And then those are the ones I'm aware of there recently. But then in the last few years, there are some more significant incidences at Mary Queen of Peace Catholic Church with significant vandalism. And then unidentified church where an African-American receptionist was constantly harassed. And then this last one I mentioned was the only one that I'm aware of where the perpetrator was actually identified and it resulted in a felony conviction. So these are serious crimes. And as you know, this is the 30th anniversary of Not in Our Town movement. So I think it's a significant time to address these issues. Also on November 18th of this year, Billings Stronger Together hosted an event titled Confronting Hate Together, a Billings Faith Leaders Roundtable. This forum featured 6 leaders from various faith denominations and spirituality in Billings. It was a powerful discussion that highlighted the discrimination their members and affiliates have endured. It further exposed the level of hate and discrimination present in our community for both religious and non-religious individuals. And as current city councilors, you have signed up to be the leaders in our community. And so I appreciate the support that some of you have shown for addressing this issue. There's lots of hate and discrimination in our community, and these recent incidents are just the tip of the iceberg. So on behalf of Billings Stronger Together, I wrote a report recently about hate and discrimination in Billings, and I'm sharing it with you all now if you allow me to pass this around. It's a report that I wrote this summer. It outlines hate and discrimination in Billings as well as Montana. Okay.
Yeah, Tucker, if you would just give it to our city administrator and he'll make sure it gets circulated.
There's 11 copies in there. I brought one extra. I should have brought some more. So if anybody wants one, the future Congress members or mayor. So I can send this to everybody via email too. So I just want to provide this information. I encourage you to take strong action. I appreciate the action the city is taking and the police department is taking in this issue. But it really is a tip of the iceberg with hate and discrimination in our community. So hopefully you will find this information enlightening and appreciate your action on this. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts. Is there other public comment at this time? Again, on item 1 or items not on our agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, employees also. I'd like to say, anytime you show hate towards religion or people's beliefs, it can't be good in any form. And with this festive time of the year, let's not forget the reason we put the word Christmas in there. Happy Hanukkah. It's to remember what centuries have gone through just to get to this point. And we're celebrating 250 years of our United States of America. We should be grateful. We are taking a lot of things for granted that shouldn't be. And so for that, I want to say Merry Christmas. To the people in Australia, our Syrian soul that were in our United States military that was in Syria, and all the other military abroad, let us give prayers and thoughts to them. On Thursday, I attended the Southside Task Force, which I do now a lot, quite regularly, and I am grateful that we're getting a great number of people involved. I've gone to a few where there was only about 4 or 5 of us. Now I start seeing 20. We ordered pizza, 6, I believe, and they were gone. So it was grateful. There was things that got brought up. The skate park down on First Avenue South and 27th Street. They need more money. But the thing that they talked about was something that I had to bring myself back to as a young boy growing up with a shoe shine kit on that street, shining cowboy shoes, cowboy boots, and business people's shoes, and remembering that was there then too. You just chose your avenue. You still walked into the honky tonks. You still shine shoes. You spit on people's boots and got paid for it. So, it's there. It's been there. I'll get sidetracked, careful. Back to the Southside Task Force. The poorest of the poor people go to family services. And I'm not exactly the poorest of poor, but I do go to the family services. I have a beautiful coat. There are people and their stories that are there that's very uplifting and at times very depressing. But the Met bus line kind of gave me I want to call it a not at this time moment. And I thought to myself, how hard is it to bring that 3rd Avenue bus 3 corners, a left to First Avenue, a right, go a few blocks. Once you go past family services, come back down to 3rd. The minutes is not there. These are the people that need that bus the most. And that's what we're about. We're about trying to help people. And I knew I wouldn't even get through half of this. But with that, I'll come back about my meetings with the Great Western Sugar. God bless. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment on item number 1, 4, or otherwise?
For the final time, good evening, Honorable Mayor Cole and members of City Council. For the record, Dan Brooks with the Billings Chamber of Commerce at 815 South 27th Street. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your comments on the events this weekend. Unfortunately, we still have to deal with those tragedies, so thank you for those words and for council as well. I wanted to be up here on a bit of a rosier note and just say thank you. On behalf of the Billings Chamber of Commerce and Visit Billings, thank you to City Council, those who are outgoing, whether you've spent a year on council, whether it's been 4 years, whether it's been 8 years, Mayor. We are very appreciative of your leadership, of your dedication, and your efforts to move Billings forward. Whether that was in the public safety bucket, which is a #1 priority for us as well. We thank you for your advocacy on public safety mill levies, adding police, fire, legal resources to address our public safety needs. Thank you for your amendment on getting some CEPTED funding set aside so that we could host the National Institute of Crime Prevention here in Billings, getting 50+ people in Billings trained on CEPTED, including 20+ city staff, so they can build CEPTED into city plans and into city strategies. We're very thankful for that. Thank you as well. I know not everybody was in favor of this vote, but adding a new requirement in our subdivision regulations for new lighting. We are literally going to build safety into new neighborhoods for here until that changes. So thank you for that big initiative. On the housing front, you've passed a majority of zoning regulations. Thank you for adding that additional density to our city zoning. generally adding new housing units to Billings. I had tallied back in 2022, I think it was, the number of TIF applications that included housing units. In something like a 6-month window, there was over 100 new units that had applied for TIF funding that you would approve. So thank you for that. Obviously, that number is much bigger now. I just didn't take time to go and count them all. Know that it is significant. And then on the, let's call it the amenities front here in Billings, thank you for your support, your advocacy of the Build Grant, which helped us to fund and finish the Interbelt Loop along with Skyline Trail. Thank you for your support of everything in the Suburra TIF with Signal Peak Ice Arena, with the Arc Courts, with the expansion to deal with the need for infrastructure and South Park Pool. And then perhaps last on my list here, and this is by no means comprehensive. You've obviously done so much more than this, but I just wanted to mention these. Last one is the West End Reservoir that will be a blank slate for a fantastic Billings amenity in the years to come. Lots to be grateful for, and we are so thankful for your service. We know that you're not done. Many of you are going to continue working with and for the community, and we look forward to that. Perhaps even on a neighborhood pub initiative here in the near future. So thank you very much, Council. We are very appreciative of your service.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. And thank you for your efforts on many of those projects. Other public comment. Is there any other public comment at this time? Before we close the public comment period? No one is coming forward, so we'll close the public comment period. Thank you very much. And move on then to item number 1, our consent agenda. Council, are there any separations from our consent agenda? Any separations? Councilmember Asplund, you must want to separate a few things, don't you? Oh, okay. All right. You sure? Yeah. All right. The Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the consent agenda without separations.
Second.
Is that an earthquake? There was a second down here somewhere. Council Asplider will make the second on that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You. and it's all yours.
This is the second time in my 2 years here that I think we've passed the consent agenda without separating anything. The second time in 2 years. So let's keep that momentum going.
Very good. Anybody want to debate this topic more? No? Okay. All right, well, then we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, no separations. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. No nays. Motion passes unanimously. Brings us to our regular agenda. Denise, would you read item number 2, please?
Public hearing and resolution approving zone change 1075 with variance. A .38 acre parcel of land, more or less legally described as lot 67A1 of the amended plot of lots 66A and 67A, Sunny Cove Fruit Farms, to be known as Homestead Acres. Zoning Commission recommends approval of zone change 1075 with variance and adoption of the 10 review criteria.
Very good. Karen is our presenter. So Karen, when you've got your, I don't know if you got a PowerPoint, but when you've got that fired up, it's all yours. Looks good.
Forgive me. Okay, this is a zone change that was initiated by City Council with regard to a public zone strip between the CMU and the Ag District during the PND process. The original zone change was zone change 1070 with a planned neighborhood development along with annexation and was approved in September of this year. There's a public zoning strip to the west side between the corridor mixed use and the agricultural zoning. It was an option given to the applicant during the PND process that would could create the required that would eliminate the requirement for a public street or alley between the CMU and the ag. The options that we gave them were they could ask for a variance, they could provide the street and alley, which would be useless because it doesn't connect to anything, or they could put a different zoning in that area between the two. So there was a little bit of confusion during that process. And when it came to City Council, they did not feel that that was a good use of the public zone district, and it created a piece of land that was basically useless. So the zone change was initiated to rectify that situation, and the applicant and their agent agreed. There's an associated variance with it that will allow them to not have to provide that public street or alley between the two. We have regulations within the zoning code for landscaping provisions between corridor mixed use that would buffer the adjacent property. Here's the aerial view. You can see the adjacent land use is residential, even though it's zoned agriculture. The Zoning Commission is recommending approval of the zone change as well as the variance. The zone change meets the intent of the growth policy, and the variance allows the zone change with the relief of the required separation by a public street or alley. There's the subject property. So your alternatives are approval and adoption of the 10 review criteria and the zone change, and approval of the variance, denial and adopt different findings, delay action, allow a withdrawal. Since it's City Council initiated, City Council would have to initiate that withdrawal, or defer the application back to the Zoning Commission. That concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer questions.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. We'll see if there's questions for Karen, but also is the developer or developer's agent present? Did they want to make any comments?
He is.
Yes, they are. And would they like to make comments? John is here. He's trying to get out of it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. John Halverson, agent of the applicant. No slideshow tonight. Happy to answer any questions you might have for us.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for Karen or questions for John? Councilmember Neese?
Yeah, just a question. I think when we talked about this, Chris, this is really for you. Has anything been done as far as, I think that at the time we asked about maybe making it the ability to have this type of process done a little bit quicker or easier, have it come to us with some type of variance before. Has anything on that front been done?
Not as of today. What I committed to a week ago is that we would create a process for the future. This packet for tonight was already done and out and concluded for when we had that conversation a week ago.
So it's being worked on. Thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Other questions before we open up for a public hearing? Any other questions for staff or John? Don't see any. So let's, this is a public hearing. So if you would like to comment, this is your opportunity on item number 2. Please come forward. Is there any public comments? This is a public hearing. Just ask you keep your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name and address. Is there any public comment on item number 2? No one's coming forward. No one's standing up. So we'll close the public hearing. Back to council. Any further questions or other motions? Council? Councilmember Tidswell?
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution approving zone change 1075 with variance and adopting the findings of the 10 review criteria as recommended by the zoning commission.
Very good. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Assenweider. Either of you like to speak to your motion? No and no. Okay, general discussion. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. If in favor, the motion is for approval of item 2, consistent with the staff recommendation. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. That concludes item 2. Brings us to item 3. There have been some changes here. We'll ask maybe Chris to explain those. If anybody's looking at an old version of our agenda, that changed on Friday to pare this one back pretty substantially. But we'll turn it over to Chris to explain that, and then looks like Mac's coming forward. We'll hand it over to Mac.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor. So as I mentioned in the changes to the agenda or my comments earlier, unfortunately, this item did not get the full review before it went on the agenda and went out publicly. So, but there's a critical, I think, policy direction that's still needed and valuable that ultimately, depending upon the direction you give tonight. So really, this is more like a work session conversation because you're gonna, I hope, or what we expect is some direction as to access to utilities or water, because they already have wastewater. If there will be a requirement to annex immediately or have the waiver process. So Mac is going to cover some additional components to the project that were not in the packet material because we have both ends. We've got some information for you relative to calls for service and demand if we are to annex the property into the city, mostly on public safety. But then also you'll hear about some pretty significant improvements to the water system if we build this pipeline project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mac to kind of cover that background. And our goal tonight is to get a direction on to allow for the project to move forward so that the property can connect to the utility, yes or no. And in doing so, will we require annexation, which is our general policy, but your policy specifically has a element or a component to it which allows for an exception to be made. So with that.
kinds of questions. So to start with, the fundamental issue that we're working on here is the Meadowlark Mobile Home Park water wells. They have some contaminants in them. You've probably read about that in the press. So the DEQ and Meadowlark actually approached the city a while back, probably a year ago. Meadowlark, in order to solve that, they applied for a DEQ grant for emerging contaminants and were awarded that grant. One of the strings with that is that grant has to be administered by a municipality. So that's a piece of that element. That grant would pay for construction of a new water main, the city system development fees, and also the city staff time to administer that grant through construction. So, fundamental question, why is the city involved? Obviously, we're trying to solve some drinking water problems on a big element. One of the issues would be if they continue to, if we say no, there's perhaps some water treatment things that they're already hooked up to our sewer, so they may ultimately, depending on the treatment, have to discharge back to our sewer. Anyway, we're also at sort of the human element, trying to solve a human health water quality problem. Obviously, the funding source is with the DEQ grant. But some of the benefits to the city, and I've got some maps here following, there is a utility benefit. So obviously the cost, the dollars here that we're talking about are a little over $2 million. Those are paid for by DEQ. And the fundamental issues with the city system, if you recall, our single water source to the landfill goes up Hillcrest Road and sort of points down to the drop-off facility. So this new water main would come in on Jellison Road at the bottom, not only provide fire service, but the potential to loop that between those two dead ends. Obviously, the city we're currently providing sewer service to Meadowlark. So a little picture on where we're at. Meadowlark Court's up on the northwest corner of the map. The current green line there, that's the sewer service that we provide to the court today. The dashed line, the blue dots, if you will, that's the current city water main that goes to the landfill up Hillcrest. The dark blue line would be the water main contemplated with this project. So the next slide shows that once that's in place, we have a potential to kind of loop this system to improve water quality, not only for water that goes to the landfill site, but also the looping there with fire flow. So kind of two fundamental issues, and this is the policy, the decision that Mr. Kukulski referred to, you know, A, providing water service or not, and then the question to annex or not. So we got some information from emergency services, and I know Chief Hoppel is here if we need to delve into the details more, but we simply asked the question, hey, one of the downsides would be, you know, Meadowlark is in the county right now, served by the sheriff, Blue Creek Fire. You know, what does that look like in the current state in terms of emergency services calls? We got that data from Chief Hoppel. Now, obviously, some of those events may be attributed to a single, let's say there was a fire, you would get police, fire, probably AMR, but, you know, 370 calls, at least in 2025 thus far. On the upside, should you annex this property, you'd get about $126,000 in tax revenue. And that was an estimate from city finance. So just looking ahead, should the city approve providing water service to Meadowlark? There's kind of 4 dominoes to tip over. One, the first 2 would be some agreements between the city and Meadowlark for that water service. Obviously, it would be a consecutive water service, so we would want to limit our liability. That's item B, and work out who does what, those kinds of things. Item C, there's an agreement that would be between the city and DEQ to administer the $2 million grant. And then the last piece of that would be the agreement for the engineering services. So in summary, we're recommending that you hold a public hearing and approve providing the water service, waiving the annexation requirements. And then we would go over those agreements in theory at subsequent city council meetings. With that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Van Tassel with Meadowlark. He's going to go over a little bit. So if the city said no, what are they looking at in terms of moving forward?
Thank you, Mac.
Welcome, Mr. Van Tassel. It's all yours.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, appreciate the time to comment on this. Just before I address that question, I did want to just emphasize one thing. The raw water currently is high in manganese, but we made significant investment in a filtration system in, can't remember the exact date. It was either late 2022 or 2023. State-of-the-art filtration center. So now the water that's being distributed is not high in that manganese. That filtration system filters that out. But in regards to the question that was posed as far as what would we do if it wasn't provided, one other bit of clarification. We actually did not approach DEQ with this grant. They approached us, and we thought it was great because at the time we had just come off the heels of some high manganese, some initial some significant investments, and our wells are relatively shallow, so they need a lot of love and care, which we've been doing. We've been investing to make sure that we're doing what's right by our residents. So they provided this option for us, and we thought it was a great plan. And then I think they presented it to the city. Ultimately, we see it as a win-win. Some of the things that were mentioned there, the city would get a long-term large customer. Option to connect for the landfill, and then of course we would be able to connect to a good reliable source of water there. To answer the question, if this was not available to us for whatever reason, we would continue to invest in the systems that we have, just like we have been, continuing to monitor with our operators, making sure that the wells are remaining, that they produce the amount that we need. We currently have 6, and if it was necessary to add more, we would look to add more and continue to improve our distribution system. So with that, happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Jay, I'll start you off with a question. Help us to understand a little bit about the water quality issues. We heard you say that you invested in 22 or 23 and which you refer to as a state-of-the-art filtration system.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we remember some stories, we weren't necessarily tracking it closely, about bad water quality. So if the problem's solved, why do you need city water? Or is the problem not solved? What's the real need or lack of need for city water?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that at any time, if you can connect into a very reliable source of water like the city has, we would do that. I think most people would. The problem is definitely solved for now, but it's going to continue to require that investment and making sure that we're always tracking on providing good quality water to our residents. And so, it's definitely improved. It's much better than it has been in the past, to your point. But if that would be why we'd want to connect to the city, because it takes a lot of effort, a lot of investment to make sure that we are providing that, which we're committed to do. But we see this as a win-win situation for both the city and us.
And now this is ringing a familiar bell, and I might have it wrong, but if I remember correctly, the way these systems work is they're not forever. They, I don't know how, if it's a sand system or what, but eventually they fail or they clog up or they have to be replaced. So you've got a fix for a while, but not forever. And the city water would be a forever fix.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. These green sand filters, you would have to continually replace them out once their useful life is over.
Okay. Other questions for staff or Jay? Councilmember Kennedy, okay if we ask Councilmember Asmlater So Councilor Raspler and Councilor Kennedy?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Chris, you and I had a conversation last Friday of whether I needed to recuse myself from this issue. My recollection of that conversation was because the contracts are off the table and all we're talking about is annexation or non-annexation, that I did not need to recuse myself on this portion, but I certainly would when the rest of this came back, because my company would theoretically be doing the water line portion. Is that yes or no, or where do I stand here?
So thank you, Councilmember Aspenleiter. And unfortunately, I didn't get to circle back and have a conversation with you. What you described is exactly what we talked about on Friday. In talking to Gina today, there is some language specific in our code relative to, and can you quote sorry. Okay. Says avoid both actual and potential conflicts between his or her private self-interest and the public interest. So unfortunately, I would interpret that to be, in this case, there's not a direct, it's as we talked about Friday, but with that language, I think the cleanest thing to do would be to recuse yourself, because the later steps do include a contract with your company.
Something else, Councilor Asweiler?
So with that, for the record, I'll be recusing myself from discussion and participation in this agenda item.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. About 15, 16 years ago, we went through the process of Briarwood and also the area, Santiago and the subdivision up there. They wanted water and sewer. They were told at that time they needed to be annexed into the city. That was a solid piece, annex, or we don't give you anything. And so when we turned around and the previous owner was asked the same thing, and they said, no, we do not want to be annexed. And because of that, it was not annexed, and there's a problem. I guess the question I have is, why don't you just come and ask for it to be annexed, and then we can work out the details of the water system, the sewer system, and everything in the future. I have a real problem with giving the water and telling other folks along Blue Creek Road there that they had to be part of the city to get the same services. Yeah. So are you willing just to ask for annexation and come in and pay the same things as everybody else, and then you get the water, the sewer, everything else?
Yeah, great question. My understanding was that there was no real interest from the city to annex Meadowlark. I believe there was a conversation, may have been with you and our CEO a number of years ago, and it seemed like there would be no interest there. Obviously any discussion of annexation, there would have to be an annexation agreement. We'd have to see what those terms are, because of the opportunity that we both have, the win-win that I've been talking about. That's why I feel like, we if it's available now, we could take it now. You never know what happens with these grants, which, entering into annexation will take some additional time. And I know that it's already been quite a while that the DEQ has offered this. So I just want to make sure that it's not going to expire, or there's not going to be an issue there. I guess that's more of my urgency, I guess. But depending on what the annexation agreement is,
Well, I have real concern tonight on having an agreement for water services and not having annexation. And I think it's kind of a slap in the face to everybody else along Blue Creek Road. And if the city of Billings doesn't want to annex, that should have been discussed with us before it went forward. But I really do feel it needs to be annexed, and then we can talk about the water and the grant and all of that.
Thank you. Councilmember Boyette. I'd see Councilmember Owen, Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess from staff, apparently you've been working on this since January, and this is the first I've heard about it. I think that's, I wish it would have come forward a little sooner so we could have discussed this. But at this point, I don't want to set a precedent so that the people on the west end or the Heights say, well, hey, my water's no good. I want you to annex, but no, give me free water. And I'll pay for it, but no annexation. I'm going to have to say no, but I'm concerned that this has been going on and we haven't been alluded to this.
Very good. Just a reminder, council, let's keep this to more or less the discussion stage. This is a public hearing. We haven't had a public hearing yet. We will open that up. But if you've got questions with that suggestion, Councilmember Owen, Councilmember Shaw.
Chris, I was going to ask you who actually negotiated this on our behalf, on our side. But if you want to answer Councilmember Boyette, please do.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So when Debbie and I approached this conversation, it was led by the decision that was made in 2016, which was to let the wastewater utility be connected, not requiring annexation. Knowing what the stresses were on the public safety side of the equation, I did direct us, let's move forward using the exception to annexation requiring waivers of right to protest annexation, but bring to the council this proposal. So that is how we worked on this. I absolutely take no offense to the cleanest policy to have is you do not connect to water or sewer without annexation. So, but our rules do give for that rare circumstance, and this is one where the math, we thought, worked out, frankly, to continue to leave it as an unannexed parcel with waivers. I will tell you there's another critical infrastructure piece we haven't talked about. I apologize, we need to make sure it gets on the record for your conversation, and that is the road. So these are private streets on the interior, so they're not an issue. But Montana law requires us, if we annex property along the roadway, the road becomes ours. So Jellison will become our responsibility, which today it's a county road. We will get a benefit of about $115,000 in street assessment fees from this development. But again, so there would be, you saw the tax offset on the property tax side. The street assessment offset would be the responsibility for Jellison. We don't have to do anything to it today by law, but at some point, if and when it needs to be upgraded, it would no longer be the county who would be in that conversation. It would be the city and the neighboring property owners. So that unfortunately didn't get on the record.
Okay, that's helpful. So I'm going to just ask you this question then, since you've been the one working on this negotiation. So if the facts support maybe making an exception here and having water service without annexation, I think you've also been right at the table working with the Heights Water District. And you know the consequences of a contract that exists in perpetuity with no end date, no ability to trigger. And I understand the contract's not here tonight, but for me, the idea of providing water service without annexation and also having a contract in perpetuity, the mayor raised this concern and I completely share it. Help me understand how we didn't have some sort of end date renegotiation trigger something.
So first of all, the waivers, as I understand from the Supreme Court rulings in Montana throughout the past 26 years, have ruled consistently if a property owner has signed a waiver of right to protest annexation, that waiver runs with the property and can be exercised by the city at its sole discretion at any time. So that is fundamentally an important part, in my mind, of ever letting someone connect to the utility, is that if it's not immediate annexation, the waiver puts this future body in the driver's seat. At any moment, they could decide we want to annex it. You could decide that today because they've already signed waivers. So there isn't a permanent agreement forever relative to their sewer connection. That if there's a conflict there, we'll need to work that out with legal. And legal did not have the opportunity, unfortunately, to review those documents before they came to you.
But I'm talking about the water services agreement. Just like the Heights Water District, the earlier version of the contract is, we'll provide you water as long as you Like, and that's what we do to the Heights Water District,
Yep.
and that has caused us problems.
Yep.
There may be a time where they never annex,
Yep.
but yet it is no longer in the city's interest to serve that. Or we need a different relationship, right? And I'm concerned that we're replicating the same error. And that would affect my decision on annexation. I would be more strongly aligned with Councilmember Kennedy saying, listen, if we're going to do service, you need to come into the city. If what we're putting forward is a water services agreement that would exist without any termination date.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
is
to
that
me,
where the negotiations sit today?
I would say the termination date there has to be a termination date relative to the exercising of the annexation. I mean, those two things should be connected together, that the city be in the driver's seat to either stop providing service and or requiring the property to annex in the city in order to continue the service. And that's my understanding of how the courts have ruled in the past, that though the Whitefish is the case that went to the Supreme Court, Whitefish could not, the property owners could disconnect from water and sewer and not be forcibly annexed. But as long as they stayed on either water or sewer, the city could annex them at their discretion.
But what if our remedy isn't annexation? Sorry, Mayor. What if our remedy is just simply, we don't want to serve you under the terms of this contract anymore? But we still don't want annexation.
Sure.
The contract that I saw didn't give us that option, which is a replication of the Heights Water District problem.
We do not want to replicate the Heights Water District problem.
So
for
did
sure.
it come up in your negotiations at all?
It has not been in a discussion that I've had, no.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Shaw.
Thanks. Two questions. One for Jay, I believe. Help me understand the urgency of the timeline, aside from the grant, putting the grant aside. The system that you have, the filtration system, what is the expected life on that?
Green sand filter, if I remember correctly, you're looking at green sand lasting 10 to 15 years. It all depends on the quality of the water, how much it's filtering, how much that's getting contaminated, right? So it's, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'll have to get the exact, but it's 10 to 15.
Okay,
right?
perfect. I just wanted a ballpark
yeah.
on that. Wyeth, could I ask you to pull up the limits of annexation map? I don't have a great sense of where this lines up, if it's in the red zone or the yellow zone, or I think it's not in the green zone.
So Councilmember Shaw and Mayor and Council, I can certainly get to the map here. It's not in any of the zones.
Okay.
It's outside of the annexation map zones at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, other questions? Then it is a public hearing. We'll try to open it up for public comments soon and come back to council. Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. For the property owner, how many units are there currently being served with your water?
Just under 200.
200, all residential?
Yes.
And I know there's some commercial next to there. Is any of that commercial supplied by your water?
We serve a grow dispensary.
Dispensary.
Right
So if we provide water to you, then your water would also be provided to them.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then 220. What's the maximum number of units you can put on that property?
I believe we're full, so we're there.
Any room for expansion or anything like that? Okay. That's and then so as I understand correctly, your water is fine right now. You didn't really have the issue. DEQ approached you and said, "How would you like to have free money to connect to the city services?"
Right.
It's kind of okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Councilor Gillick?
I think I have a question probably for Debbie. Just wanting to better understand, if we were to annex this property, what would our obligations be? So Chris mentioned Jellison Road, a county road, but then there's also roads within the mobile home park. Would those be private roads, or those have a city, or I guess back maybe, or one of you two? Would we have obligations that way in terms of bringing it to a city standard, stormwater, just kind of all the other infrastructure things? What are all the other things we need to be thinking about if we were even, assuming that the owner was even interested in annexation? But just what are all the things we need to be thinking about?
Sure. Councilmember Gulick, Mayor and Council, two-part question. One, what would the city's obligations be on the private side of the fence, if you will, the private streets, et cetera? That would be no different than any other private development. So we would not, jump the fence and deal with those maintenance items, if you will. Now, if they made a change to their development and were in the city, that they would trigger a new, stormwater requirement but that would require a change in what they would do. Second part of the question is with Jellison Road. At some point, if the city is responsible for maintaining that road, I could see, a partial reconstruction of that, somewhere down the road, no different than other county roads that we, annex, if you will, as part of annexations.
Okay, very good. Let's open it for public hearing. This is a public hearing on item number 3. If you'd like to comment, please come forward. Is there any public comment on this item? Sure, go ahead. Just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name and address.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jeff Kettleson. I live at 489 South 44th Street West. I'm a voting member of our city. Listening to this discussion right here, I would urge the City Council not to agree to give the gentleman his water without annexing into the city. As he was speaking right now, he mentioned that his mobile home park actually supplies a grow center, which is a business. That's something that we didn't hear city council or city people talk about. So maybe the dollars are different. There's just a lot of moving parts that I hear tonight that as somebody that just sits here trying to understand what you people do, it doesn't make sense at all. And I also agree that reading in the newspaper that the Billings Height Water District is an absolute mess. I'm very shocked that that's going on, but that's a whole different deal. So anyways, for my opinion, I think that you should at least table this proposal and send it back for more discussion, maybe work it out in your work meeting, or deny him straight out tonight without annexation in. And then also, if we do annex his property, does he have the ability to give another piece of property next door our water? I don't think that's right. Anyways, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Other public comment on this item. Is there any other public comment on item number 3?
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Paul Clark, Southside Triangle. Blaine's Trailer Court, let's just call it what it was a field that Blaine put in there, put in some trailer parks, and started charging rent. Very, very cheap. Okay, when you look up the hill, that is the landfill. When you look from the landfill down, those are trailer courts. I thought living next to the sugar factory with its beautification was bad. I don't even know why the city would even think about making it into the city limits. Also, that road Jellison, where does that road go? Does it lead down the river? It led to Blaine's at one point, but there's no development. Once you get past that trailer park, that's it. So unless you plan on using that Jellison Road for more commercial development, that'd be great. But just remember, the location is the landfill. That's where we're all going. That would be, so it sounds like you're not going to really go for it right now anyway, and yes, it will be tabled, I'm sure. But again, why did we even put water line in there? And it sounds like they weren't even, anything that we tried to do for the city, they really didn't want it. I'll stay on subject and leave it at that. Once again, God bless.
Very good. Thank you. Any other public comment on item number 3? This is a public hearing. Any other public comment on item number 3? No one is standing up. No one's coming forward. So we'll close the public hearing. Council, or question for staff. And Chris, you can direct this to whoever you want, or you can. My prediction is that this is very complicated, or my conclusion is a very complicated balance sheet with some real pros and some real cons, some real costs and some real benefits. But we're going to need to see in writing what those costs are to the city and what those benefits are before we make any conclusion at all on this. I would predict, so I imagine the council will want to continue this discussion, but not make any final decisions tonight. one fundamental element that we haven't talked about on the cost side of that ledger is the cost of providing public safety services to this property. There's about 205 Yellowstone County Sheriff Office calls based on the statistics that we were given before, about 100 fire calls. So almost roughly 300 calls a year, almost one a day. Do we have a way to calculate the cost of those? And if we do kick this back to staff to say, planning department, finance department, public works, can you put your heads together to come up with that detailed written report of pros and cons on that important public safety element? Who does that? Is that something we can do? Do we know those numbers now? I assume we don't, but I wanted you to have an opportunity to comment on the bigger issue, but also specifically the public safety cost element.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the answer is no. We don't have the precise dollars of what it would cost to serve this property on the non-utility side of the equation. You can calculate the utility side, very straightforward, but we cannot on the police, fire, parks. We gave you some roads because we do have a street assessment system, so I can tell you, each home is going to see a jump in their fee, and we generate about $115,000. So at a very high level, it frankly was why the staff recommendation was not to annex, because the concern was the cost. And in a general sense, the costs were going to exceed the benefit. So that is why we headed down that path with this property already receiving the city service on waivers. But again, I support 100%. The cleanest, strongest path for any city is to have a very bright line relative to connecting to water and sewer and being required to annex. But there are some exceptions, and we have them in our community. So that's why we find ourselves in suggesting it this way. So no on precisely, but generally speaking, I can tell you without a lot of precision, I expect the costs are going to be higher than the revenue.
But Chris, if even though you may not be able to get to an exact dollar, I'm assuming that we could get some numbers that are better than what we have now, which are basically no numbers on that element of the cost.
Sure, we could come up with a rationale of a range. Again, we know the revenue from the project, but what is each call for service out of the police department and fire department? We do not have a data point for that.
Yeah, hard to measure. Okay. Council, how do you want to proceed, or other questions? Councilmember Ripsis, Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question on the annexation with the potential of the grow facility or the dispensary there. What would happen with that under an annexation? Because we have a policy of no recreational dispensaries in the city limits.
Mayor and Council Member Upsis, I was not aware that. I mean, I was looking at this the entire time as in supplying water to just the entity that's asking for it. So I think certainly the complication, all of a sudden it starts feeling more like a bulk water sale. Mobile homes are treated different, are uniquely in a whole bunch of categories, but that adds more elements because it adds additional parcels. And as you know, our citizens have banned the sale of recreational marijuana inside the city limits. So I'm not certain. We haven't had a case yet where we've annexed a parcel that's doing something that is unlawful inside the city. You'd have to rely on legal to tell me what happens there.
Very good. Councilmember Boyette.
So I'll be the outspoken one here. As a brand new deputy 50 years ago, I went to Billings Trailer Court, and I wondered why that existed then. And I can see from the calls that it hasn't quit. So I'm going to make a motion to deny this request. And that's it. Make a motion to deny this request.
Second by Councilmember Tidswell. Okay, that's your motion. Did you want to speak to your motion further?
And it sounds like this is a moving target. There keeps to be more information. I'm disappointed that we didn't see this sooner as the council. if this was to come back, it needs to go to a work session where we get every piece of information before it starts. And this sounds bad and I'll get criticized for it, but it sounds like someone has a problem trying to make it our problem. I understand their issues, but I think we need to, I don't want this to happen going forward, that we set a precedent that somebody on another part of town says, well, hey, my water is bad. I want you to give me water and I don't want to be annexed. I don't want the city people ultimately paying for this. So that's why I made the motion.
Very good. Councilor Tiswell, your second. Do you want to address further?
No, I'm going to echo what Mike just said. And then if I see this right, there have been 2 calls for service for every home out there, and it's not even the end of the year. Is that correct?
There's about 200 units and about 300 calls, something in that
something like
vicinity.
that.
So
Okay.
1.5.
That's ugly.
370. Okay. Yeah. How do we know it's not all to 1 unit, though? Councilor Shaw, Councilor Neese?
Thank you. I expect to support the motion. I don't want to incentivize more building really far out in the county that then in 10 years another council is having to make this same kind of decision. So in my opinion, I think we're getting into pretty murky waters there. Question for Gina. Gina, are they prohibited from bringing this back for any period of time? Deny this? It's not like a zoning request where there's a moratorium for 12 months.
Councilmember Shaw, I'm not aware of any deadlines or any prohibitions of bringing it back after a certain time. Perhaps Debbie or Mac might have some more information about that are contained in their regulations, but I think that this could, council could reconsider
I just wanted to make sure
that
that door is potentially open if they want to come back to a work session or something. That would be fine with me.
I don't see any reason why council couldn't consider this again.
Okay, thanks.
Very good. Councilor Neese?
Yeah, I'm going to support the motion, and again, what was quoted as what we're looking at is 26207 is the exception, and I believe this really doesn't warrant an exception. As we heard from the applicant, their water system's working. DEQ is just kind of came up with it. To me, it's not really an exception. I kind of considered it possibly because maybe if we could get them to agree to this and then actually have them put in the loop to the thing and they pay for that. I'm looking for a win for the city. It's really not a win-win for the city as it is now. And so I'm going to support the motion, but I also want to correct it. As I read this denial will prevent them from coming back to the city council for at least 1 year. That's what the code says. So again, Gina, that's 26207. City code.
Very good. We'll probably come back to that issue. Give Gina a few minutes to take a look at it.
Yeah, and I think that, it sounds to me like because it's not an urgent issue and they're not having to fix their system, it's working now. I don't think this even needs, if it were to ever come back, it would be years from now anyway. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? I'll just make a couple quick comments. One, I also support the motion. It sounds like we're being fairly agnostic about the ultimate issues of annexation or not. And so I'm not sure quite where staff is left, but I guess my interpretation would be if staff and the property owner see benefits to both parties, that the staff could go through that analysis and come back to us at a work session with further information. If they think there's no point in going forward, staff may not ever come back. But I'm not hearing us close off to staff further discussions with the developer if ultimately staff believes that there are real benefits to the city. The other point I would just make is encourage the council to be aware of the power of the annexation agreement. So if there are problems that we foresee here, think about how they could be addressed by contract with the annexation agreement. We have flexibility there that doesn't exist in zoning, doesn't exist with subdivision. So if there are problems with security and there are ways to address that with Dan Brooks septed type cures, lighting, better paved roads, if we want them to contribute to a portion of these public safety costs, that's all theoretically possible through annexation. It's just be a matter of negotiation going forward. So those are my thoughts. I don't know whether we'll Councilmember Kennedy, and then we'll come back to Gina, see if she has any comment about the consequence of the motion with any forced delay. Councilmember Kennedy?
Yes, it was way back when City Administrator Taylor was in, and during that time, we went to meeting after meeting after meeting, and Taylor insisted, and the City Council insisted that Briarwood and the other area come in. They were also asked Blaines if they wanted to come in. They said, no, we don't want to pay for that. When the city annexed, and we warned them at that time, I was on the commission, we warned them at that time that it would be costly for the city to annex the area. Penciling it out, it was, and the people inside the city subsidized the different, from police to fire to everything out in that area that was annexed. So really, if you're not going to really go through with a full annexation and provide the services that the city provides, then we might as well go with the motion that Councilman Boyette has and deny it, because precedent has been set for many years there, and my constituents are in the city and would be very irritated if it came in and they wouldn't have had to come in to get the city the water and the sewer. Thank you.
Very good. Do we lose Gina?
We're getting a confirmation as to what the formal request was. So in order to interpret properly that sentence in section 207, we want to understand.
Can you read that for us, because we don't have that in front of us? So just curious what it.
So section 26-207 city council action. After the conclusion of a public hearing as provided in section by a simple majority vote of those members present and voting, the mayor and city council may waive the requirement of sections 26-203 and 26-204 if in their discretion there exists unique or exceptional factual circumstances that convince them that such requirements within these two sections are unnecessary or impractical. If the requirement of section 26-203 and 204 are not waived, the city council shall approve, conditionally approve, or deny an application for enlargement of the service area. So that, not a lawyer, what does that mean, the service area that has met the requirements of section 203 and 204 within 30 days after the date of the public hearing? The approval or conditional approval shall be enforced for a period of time set forth in the approval. A denial of an application shall be enforced for 1 year after the date of such denial. So Gina's getting to the legal question in the middle there about relative to the application for enlargement of a service area.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay, so we're wrestling with that legal interpretation question. Councilmember Boyette, since you made the motion, I'm not asking you to change your motion. I'm just going to observe that if the city attorney says there's any doubt about that, I guess one way to give her more time to wrestle with this issue would be to just agree to table this to some other future agenda in January, February, March, and then come back to it. I just throw that out. We'll see what the city administrator, or I'm sorry, the city attorney. Can we turn it to Gina?
Almost. Let me just read this last paragraph because I think it's pertinent for the future. So the last paragraph deals with, and that's what I've been accustomed to through my career, is how important the last paragraph is, which is doesn't change the policy issue. I agree. It's much cleaner. But in all circumstances where an enlargement of the service area has been approved or conditionally approved, but annexation has been denied prior to the provision of services by the city, and the applicant shall enter into a service agreement with the city and shall submit a written waiver of right to protest annexation. That is one of the key components that I've seen through my career is critical to, if ever allowing someone to connect to your utility, putting future councils in the driver's seat. So I'll let Gina, and that's what you have in your code pertaining to this.
Very good. Gina, do you want to comment on this discussion we've been having?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the way I interpret this, as I read 26-207, the statement that's referenced by Councilmember Neese, I'm going to read that section to you. Well, actually, first I'm going to refer you to section 26-203 and 204. Those require an application for enlargement of the service area, which is referenced in 26-205. That is the application that is referenced throughout this section. There is no application for a waiver. What is, as I read this, what is supposed to occur is an application for enlargement of a service area, then council determines if it's going to waive the requirements for that are set forth in 203 and 204, which are the annexation requirements. And so as I read the statement under 207 that was referenced by Councilmember Neese, it indicates a denial of an application shall be enforced for 1 year after date of such denial. So that is referring to an application for enlargement of a service area, which was not, I just clarified with Debbie Melling that there was no application made. So technically that is what would be enforced for a year. And so this is a little murky because there wasn't an application, but council is in effect determining whether, I guess, whether that application would be approved or denied. But again, there's not been that application filed and made. So I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that is what I think that is referencing. I think that there may be a flaw in this process, that an application should have been made, and then council is to determine whether the requirements are waived or required. That is those annexation requirements.
Okay, so council, my interpretation, Councilmember Neese will go to you in just a second, but what Gina just said is that technically there is no such application pending. So the 1 year waiting period at least technically does not apply. But she also called it murky, suggesting that maybe this could be interpreted as an implied application for expansion of the service area, and that's where the murkiness comes in. So there, the 1 year waiting period, there's a theoretical possibility it might apply here. Begs the question kind of whether if it did, we could clean that up by somehow waiving that or changing issuing an interpretation that that's not in play here. But Councilmember Neese, you want to comment further?
Yeah, I think you're correct in the sense that we have the applicant here asking for water service, which means we expand our service area. That's an application, whether it was in writing or verbal. I mean, as this was, as has been presented by the city administrator to provide us some type of service. And the one we have is blank, but it would have to check the box of either water or sewer. In this case, it was water. So there was an implied application. And so I don't know if there is an actual application. And when you talk to Debbie, if there's an actual application, maybe someone skipped that process and maybe this thing should have never come to the city council and we shouldn't be talking about it because the applicant didn't formally apply. Then again, we're wasting a lot of time even talking about this when the process wasn't even followed. My interpretation is they applied for it and we're denying it. And that's what I'm voting on.
And Mayor.
Council, do you have any objection to our applicant commenting? Because he obviously has something at stake here. So, Jay, welcome back.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You've heard the discussion.
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
I appreciate it. I think we were not aware until Friday evening that this was even a thing. It sounds like we were all in the same boat on that. And so I'm having trouble understanding exactly what if I understand correctly, what's being denied is the expansion of service without annexation. So is the 12-month period that's being discussed, is that we cannot come to annex in for 12 months? Is it that we cannot come again and ask for an expansion for 12 months? Or and if it's either one of those, really, I mean, that's a tough punishment and to have when we just found out about this 36 hours ago.
Sure.
Mayor.
So Jay, my interpretation of your question is that the 1-year period would apply to what is the subject of those sections, which is this application for expansion of service area, not necessarily annexation. Those things may be related, but that's my interpretation. Without having looked at it, just based on what our city attorney said, she can correct that if I'm wrong. If you're concerned about that, if you have made an application impliedly, it seems to me that one of our options, and I'll defer to the city attorney, is that you can withdraw that application.
Yeah.
If it's your application, you can you can remove the application by standing there and say, if we made an application, we withdraw that. We want to start up from scratch, unless our city attorney says that's not an option. I'm not going to force you to answer that question whether you want to withdraw it. We'll come back to you on that. We'll come back to the city attorney on all this. But Councilmember Neese is down here as well.
Yeah, Mayor, I think that I hear from Councilmember Owen in just a minute, but I think if we want to just withdraw the issue because they haven't actually done a written application or an application in writing or had followed the process, I think maybe we should just say this issue is just, we're not going to take any action on it because it really shouldn't be before us, and that would solve the issue, and then we wouldn't have to worry about the 1 year or not 1 year. So if there's really nothing to deny since we don't have an application.
Mayor.
That's kind of what I was advocating for, but that's not the motion before us.
It's implied, and I think Councilmember Owens said she was reading something that said it had to be in writing.
The withdrawal has to be in writing? Or the application has to be in writing?
No, section 26205 says that requests for enlargement must be submitted in writing, use the forms provided by the city, but I'm just not sure I agree with the interpretation that's ahead of us. So Gina, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this particular article is clumsy, I think, but it seems to be at least open to the interpretation that there is a process by which you first request a waiver, and if the waiver is denied, then you must comply with the application requirements. But if the waiver is granted, there is no application requirement. It appears to conceive of a different process. But the deadline here is if you don't get a waiver, then council has 30 days to approve or deny an enlargement of service area request. But I don't necessarily concur that if council were to say, you know what, we're not going to grant a waiver, that they are barred from a year. I think the waiver attaches to an expansion of the service area, or the 1 year deadline attaches to the expansion of the service area, not the waiver request. So I think you could narrowly say we're not in a position to waive the city ordinance tonight, but we can continue discussing.
Okay, obviously it's getting very complicated, but if it just goes away, that solves our problem. Gina, I'm going to ask Jay if he just wants to withdraw this, his whatever it is this proposal is. Do you have any concerns about that?
I don't. I think I agree with Councilmember Owen that this is clumsy at best. It is difficult to interpret, and I was going to point out the same section that Councilmember Owen pointed out, that 26-205 does require in writing. There are forms that are supposed to be provided, and that any implied application, I think, is problematic because this written application on the forms provided by the city potentially could provide the opportunity for the applicant to submit documentation in support of whether these requirements should apply. I think that denying an application without it being in writing is problematic. So I agree that if the applicant, so to speak, does want to withdraw a request for the waiver at this point, I think that that's a different question. I don't think that the 1 year prohibition on coming back would apply in that case. I think that that just applies to the denial of an application for the enlargement of a service area.
Okay, thank you, Gina. What I'm going to do, council, is I'm going to ask Jay, give me lots of preparation time here. Whatever we're doing here, we're here because you asked us to, and we appreciate that. We encouraged it. You know, obviously we've had some discussions, but I'm going to ask him if he does want to withdraw whatever this is, to give more time for him and staff and this council to think about it going forward. And if he says yes to that, I'm going to look to Councilmember Boyette. I'm going to say, Councilmember Boyette, I'm going to rule your motion now unnecessary, out of order, whatever, because it's been mooted. And so that's my plan going forward. Before I ask Jay that very important question, though, any questions or concerns about my doing so? Okay, very good. Jay, with that,
Yeah,
you see where we're going here.
Yeah.
Is this okay to take a step back and just deem this to be withdrawn? But we need that from you on the record.
I mean, we see this as a great opportunity for both of us. I've mentioned it multiple times, and so if withdrawing the application or whatever we're calling it is the way to do that and continue to partner and work through a solution, then I think that's the best course of action. So we'll formally withdraw the application.
Very good. We appreciate your cooperation. Appreciate your clarity on that. Your need has not gone away. The potential pros and cons haven't gone away. We'll let you and staff talk about how you want to proceed going forward. Chris, anything, it's going to end up in your court and your staff's court. So anything else you want from us before we deem this item resolved for tonight?
We're all set tonight. I think our challenge both is the property owner and administration will be with a new body of 11 people at our next meeting. Clearly, this body is saying we are not inclined to allow anyone to connect to the utility without requiring annexation. That's fine. That is our primary policy. So we'll be more firm about that or recognize that's the policy direction. So we'll see what our opportunities are, how to help them and help us moving forward.
Very good. We'll allow any additional comments. I would just throw in, if it does come back in some form similar to the original, I just refer you back to my 3-page email addressing specific issues with the individual documents that were before us before. Councilmember Asplund or Councilmember Boyette?
Yeah, thanks. Now that we don't have anything on,
Not that I know of. Gina, any reason we have to accept this denial? I know if maybe with the zone change, that's statutory, I guess, but
The zone change is separate and that's required by city code, but this, I don't think there's any formal action
okay, this just
required here.
has gone away. And I have ruled Councilmember Boyette's original motion as now being moot. Councilmember Asplund?
yeah, and Chris, I guess this is a process comment. We're going from 2 attorneys on the city council to 0 attorneys on the city council. And I heard you multiple times here in this process say that legal didn't review this document. This is not the first time, and I hope it's getting close to being the last time. I also don't think that's 100% accurate. Legal put the document together. If it didn't go through a review process internally in legal, those are process issues that we have to get better at. And we need to be, we need to put us all in a situation to succeed. And that did not happen here. We can't let this continue to happen that way. We've got to get better at process.
Understood. And I know Gina would like to say something. And yes, I've learned some more information just minutes before this meeting started. So I take full responsibility for that. Go ahead, Gina.
Thank you, Council Member Aspenlighter, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to take this opportunity to explain, as I understand it, what did happen in this case. And a former Deputy City Attorney, Stacey Tenney, worked on this matter with some of the engineers and put together some draft proposed agreements. They were in draft form. and sent them to Public Works, and there was never any additional correspondence about that. So those were in draft form. Those were not final form in any way, shape, or form. They were drafts. And there was never a request. The city attorney's office was not involved in any negotiation, was not informed of any negotiation, was never sent any final draft agreements that I'm aware of to review. So that, because this has happened in this case and it has happened before, I have spent some time speaking with the clerk today, asking if we can implement a new procedure, which requires anytime something goes through Agenda Quick, which is our agenda setting software, anytime anything goes through Agenda Quick that indicates there was a legal review, that is automatically routed to my office, to me specifically, so that I can review it to ensure and verify with our attorneys that they actually did review it, so that this doesn't happen, so that something is not published with some incorrect information. So that's the step that I've taken, because this should not happen. I agree, the process needs to be addressed, and that's the only way that I can figure to address it. So while that may create additional steps and additional work for my office, that's something that I think has to happen. And that's my request and my attempt to fix this process.
Very good. Thank you. I think there's total agreement that the process failed here and needs to be improved. Anything further?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the commitment to improving the process, but I'm fairly certain Todd Korn worked on this, and Todd still works for legal. And what I would have, this could have went away if there was some acceptance of accountability for failure coming out of the legal department, but that wasn't the case, and that's disappointing to hear. So looking forward to improvement in process. Sure would have appreciated just an acknowledgement that didn't work right out of your department, but you didn't do that, and that's
yes.
disappointing.
Thanks, Councilmember Aspenleiter. I completely understand the point that you're making, and absolutely am not trying to avoid any accountability. I just wanted to make it clear that our office didn't review it. There was miscommunications. Spoke with Mr. Korn this afternoon, and he said he did not review the agreements, was not asked to do a legal review. So there was just miscommunication between our two offices, and to take responsibility for whatever part we had in that miscommunication, and we'll do our best to endeavor to fix this going forward.
Very good, Councilor Kennedy. And then I think you're done with item number 3. We'll move on to item number 4.
I just want to say one thing. This should have been withdrawn, even if it was 10 minutes before this meeting. And we should have we wasted a lot of people's time this evening. And most of us on the council were in the dark until we had this discussion tonight. So I would just ask in the future, Chris, if the I's aren't dotted and the T's aren't crossed, then it needs to go, it needs to be pulled, because we shouldn't have to go through this and finally get to the end, and especially with the applicant of asking them to withdraw at the end and all of that.
Fair enough. With what I knew Friday, we knew that B, C, and D should be removed. With what I learned just before the meeting, yes. Minutes before the meeting, the right call would have been to pull it off the agenda altogether, but also the applicant's here from out of state, and we were looking for what the policy mood was of the council, but in hindsight, maybe it would have been better to not have wasted any conversation about this evening. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. That concludes item number 3. Denise, would you read item number 4?
City Administrator's Annual Performance Evaluation and Approval of Compensation Increase.
Very good. This, Chris is going to bring up well, no, that's for the next item.
The next,
for one,
yeah.
okay.
Sorry, I'm bringing up the next
I'm
item.
gonna, we conducted the city administrator's annual performance evaluation in executive session, consistent with state law and past practice. I'm gonna just ask Deputy Mayor Boyette to comment on this because I was at another commitment, the kickoff for the public fundraising at Dale Stadium, and so I missed at least half of this discussion. And I think it'd be better if it was coming from Councilmember Boyette, just to give a quick little wrap up of that process. So with that, Councilmember Boyette.
So according to the contract we have with the city administrator, we're required to do an annual review, which is was due November 15th, but we did it now. Every council member that was present had an opportunity to weigh in with good things, bad things, their feelings, future agenda. And I thought it was a very cordial meeting, and I thought it ended up well. And I'm happy that at least 7 of the 11 people participated in the review process, and I think it went well.
Very good, Councilor Boyette, and part of the process is always to look at compensation issues. And so, as Councilmember Boyette said, Chris has an existing contract, and last year, part of that agreement was amended to include a 3% cost of living adjustment, and that is contractual. The council acknowledged that. Expressed its appreciation to Chris for his services and our enjoyment for having worked with Chris. Made no other changes to his compensation package. And with that, I think that was the conclusion. There's no further action to be taken on this item, assuming there aren't any motions. And so that would be the end of item number 4. And bring us to the this item that's on our agenda is titled Recognition of Outgoing Mayor and Council Members, which is Chris, while you're standing at the podium, I think.
Yes, so thank you, Mayor Council. It's good to have the chamber kind of kick us off in the same regard. I didn't want to take a lot of time, but I thought it's important to take a little bit of time because a lot has been done over the past 4 years and the past 8 years, and we've got literally a significant size, a majority of the council stepping off. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and, of course, at the risk of missing things, highlight some of the accomplishments and specifically kind of start out, as you well know, where we've evolved from a list of to-dos to ultimately now 5 strategic goals and some objectives, and the refinement of that process will be something into the future. I think that'll be more measurable and higher level of understanding and accountability. So improving safety, these 5 things really haven't changed in the past, 8 years since this body has been seated. And yes, there's been people in and out. I think Mayor Cole is the one who's 8. No one else is full 8 terms. I think Councilmember Neese is close, coming in when Mr. Brewster stepped off the council. So you're well familiar there. On the kind of policy program side, right, there's some pretty significant things, and there's more than this list, but LEED Gold certification, banning recreational marijuana sales inside the city limits, code enforcement program, right? A decade ago, I'm told code enforcement was really a non-existent element of our public safety program. I know the one I missed. Crime prevention through environmental design, CEPTED. That was not something I was familiar with, frankly, until Councilmember Owen and others, though our law enforcement police officers were well aware. We had the chamber, who's well indoctrinated. The improvements to CEPTED, knowledge of CEPTED, training in CEPTED, I think is meaningful, will pay off into the future. And other programs that you can see there. I don't need to read them, but they make a difference, and I think they're impactful long-term, and we don't enough, I think, recognize the policy side of the house, Recode and others. On the projects, though the first one really isn't a project, COVID was a pandemic, from 2018 to 21. So in that first group, and I came in on Veterans Day of 18. So I missed that essentially that first year. So I got to work with the group who hired me, which as a city manager, you always have an appreciation for the group of people who offered you a job and brought you to town. So I thank them and that group. These are some of the key elements and policy and projects that got built. And right, the math, we're well north of $100 million of investments in capital, in roads, and wastewater, and public safety, the repeal and replace. If I recall correctly, we were guided and advised strongly not to do that. We should not take back-to-back public safety questions to the voters, and yet we were going into a pandemic and we had a mess on our hands and we knew it. So I think the strategy was a good one. We were successful with the public. I think on roughly a 60-40 vote, the voters supported repealing the old capped levy and replacing it. That was a revenue. It had a revenue number in it and let us put a mill levy value in. So some big deals there. On the 22 to 25, also some very significant, both capital projects that were mentioned by Dan, as well as then was Public Safety 3, I call it. I think but it was a part of what ultimately added 70 personnel to the criminal justice system deliberately across the system to do better at prevention, to do better and be more efficient using non-sworn officers to help maximize the value and support of our sworn officers and department. And you can see the list there and the numbers up. I don't know if you noticed. So we have made improvements. Much as I've harped on us, we still have room to grow, but we're up to 36, almost 37 million in underground pipe work that we did in the second 4 years, and that was up from the previous, and the same on the roads maintenance side. I think we were 12 million. Now the next 4, we got closer to 17 million. Those are an awfully limited list, but it is some of the highlights, I think, of the work. Now, also, we have been the city's tradition, I guess. We've got plaques here for each of you for your dedicated service to the city of Billings as a member of the Billings City Council, and it gives the dates in which you were on the council. So, Mike, the deputy mayor is going to make his way over here, and we'll get. I asked him to do that, but. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's that? Okay. He's growing a beard and everything.
Beard?
Yes. So the city of Billings. For the city of Billings to keep you warm during the winter, okay?
Thank you.
And because your feet get cold, we got you another pair of socks. This is City of
These are
Billings.
good socks, too. These are great.
And this is your bag. And lastly,
Oh, oh, isn't that nice? Thank you very much. With my own gavel.
Your own
okay,
gavel.
Okay. With my name, thank you for helping build a brighter future for Billings. Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you. You're not quite allowed to leave yet. We do want to give outgoing council members an opportunity to say anything they want. I mean, it's not like, what's anybody going to do to you at this point? So why don't we just take a minute, and you're not limited to 3 minutes. So why don't we just start down here, and I'll finish up. Outgoing council members, Councilmember Gillick. And
Have a
no
great
obligation,
holiday
but you're
season.
welcome to do so.
Been a pleasure to serve. Thank you all.
Am I next? I
You
guess.
are, Councilor
Okay,
Owen.
sorry.
Yep.
It's been an absolute honor to serve the city in this way. This is my home. I'm happy to have been here. Happy to see the list of accomplishments. It's quite significant, and I wish the incoming council the very best luck in the world.
There you go, Councilmember Rogers.
Hard to top what we're already saying here. I do very much appreciate the opportunity to serve with you guys. It's been extremely informative, sometimes frustrating. I love you guys, and thank you for the city.
Thank you very much. Councilor Tidswell.
Yeah, thank you. Very grateful for the 4 years that I've spent here. I appreciate everything and every minute of it. And I wish you the best.
Thank you, Councilor Ipsis.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. It's been a real privilege to serve the community in this way. Thank you to all the city staff for all the work that you do every day and putting up with us and our temperamental natures. Appreciate what you're doing to move the city forward and work with us as a team. So thank you. You've made it a great place to serve and a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've had the privilege, I think, of presiding over 200 or so of these meetings. No blood has been shed at any of them. And I think I probably served with about 24 council members, if you add them all up. And what an amazing list. Thank you, Chris, for putting together that. And we know that that was just a partial list. There are individuals who you got their garbage picked up that wouldn't have, or a speed sign that you were able to get installed that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So there's so many achievements that these councils, over at least my last 8 years and this council, have achieved that you can be very, very proud of. And I think we did that together. I've always been impressed by, even though we don't always agree, that the council members who have served over the last 8 years have always had the city's best interests at heart. May see those through what those are through different lenses, but I've never questioned anybody's sincerity. I've always admired the intelligence and hard work of the people who've served on this body. You know, I think many of our city residents know, but they may not fully appreciate just how selfless your service is. It takes a lot of time, and you serve with virtually no financial compensation for that. Not only do you not receive much of any financial compensation, but it often is service that comes at a very real financial cost and personal cost in family time, personal fun time, other friendships, and without fail, the people on this dais make those sacrifices without grumbling. And that is an amazing thing to say. And so this truly has been the honor of my professional life. So thank you all for being part of that. And most of all, thank you for serving your constituents so well over your term on this body, but for those who are not with us anymore, I just want to also thank those other council members that I have had the privilege of serving with over all of these years. So thank you all. I wish we could just gavel this meeting closed, but we always respect process, and we still have public comment on non-agenda items. So I'm going to go to that final item before we adjourn if there is nothing further from the council. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items that we haven't already covered tonight? Seeing Mr. Clark.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Paul Clark, Southside. Thank you for your service, everyone. And hopefully you'll be part of this crowd with your 3 minutes. I'll let you have that. I didn't get a chance to go back and follow up on a lot of things that had happened to me this year. One of the things was I did groundwater testing in my backyard by Energy Labs. They did give me results. There are some concerns. Luckily, there's no ammonia and nitrogen. There's no carcinogens, but there are quite a bit of alkaline and some other materials that came from lead pipes. But as so far, if I drink the water, and a few of my chickens that will drink the water, as far as we know, are not going to grow a tail. And I won't get feathers, and they won't get fingers. So that's the plus side of this. It was a pretty good extensive testing. And once again, I did give a few council members the results. And it is surprising that the plume that we have that faces us with the Big Sky linen that is working its way underground towards the river, so is the limestone at the sugar factory when it overflows. And they have been subject to numerous citations. I can't remember exactly how many, probably 40 in the last 5 years, including a death, one of them workers. So again, this sugar factory, it needs to be a better neighbor than what they are. They are going to go out of business if we're not careful. So has the Sydney sugar factory that went out of business a couple years ago. I don't know what kind of contamination site was left after the sugar factory left, but I would imagine the price of sugar beets is so low, it's to the point where these shareholders are not going to want to get again involved, which will close down the sugar factory, which will leave our limestone pond and almost a dog pound, Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter on Wilson Park. I think that got chaired for now. But these are things that we need to look at, people, and I would love to have you back here on this side of the chair with your 3 minutes and your input, those of you that are outgoing. Again, I got 6, 7 more things that I want to do, but of course I can't do it. Congratulations on everyone and growth through prosperity. God bless you all. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment on non-agenda items?
My name is Jeff Kettleson. I live at 489 South 44th Street. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank all the city council members for serving this year, especially the ones that are going to be leaving. And I'd also like to welcome in the new ones that will be coming to serve us. I just moved recently to Billings from Nashville, Tennessee, and I can honestly say that this city council seems to be more in tune with the residents, and I think that most of the people here actually want to do good for the city. In the last couple of months, there's only 2 things that really stand out to me. One was when you were discussing about the new ice arena, and I was absolutely shocked when city staff came in and said it was going to be $10 million, and one of the city council members said, wait a second, I think it was council member Kennedy, said we only approved 9. And there was a little bit of disagreement that went on there, and I was shocked that there was an agreement between the money that was approved versus the money that's going to be spent. I don't think that ever got resolved. Also, tonight was the other one that absolutely shocked me, was the apparent annexation of the mobile home park. You know, and as I think about it some more, he mentioned that he provides water to a business that is not allowed in the city, which is apparently a marijuana grow place. And my question, as I think about that, is as the city annexes property into the city, if the property owner has those types of agreements with somebody that's outside of the city, right next door, do they have the ability to continue to do that? And I don't think if there's no law that's against that, I think there should be a law against that. That, hey, wait a second, you know, we're going to bring you water, you got our sewer, and now you're going to be right next door. You're going to be out in the county in an illegal business, but we're still going to be providing it. To me, I hate to say this, but rats always eat around the edge of the cheese. And tonight it smelled. So I'm glad that you guys tabled it. I would hope that if that's a loophole, that you look into that. But anyways, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on the ones that are here, and good wishes to the ones that are leaving.
Very good. Thank you. Welcome to Billings. It was 15 degrees in Nashville a couple days ago, so enjoy the warm weather here. Any other public comment? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.